Hi, my name is Helen Sung, and welcome to my digital residency, Reorientation Asian American Artists Out Loud. The idea to do something like this comes from two sources, I would say. One is my continuing journey on what it means to be Asian American in America growing up, and also by the unfortunate anti Asian sentiment that kind of crested earlier this year during the pandemic. I wanted to do, as Leonard Bernstein said famously, that our reply to violence is to make music with more devotion, more beauty, and more passion than ever. I also wanted to do my part to bring a greater awareness to just the range and the depth and just the amazing creativity that Asian Americans, the AAPI community has. I think in most media and the press, how Asian Americans and Asians are presented is it's very narrow and kind of limited. So I want to elevate other Asian Americans in the arts who are not necessarily musicians. And we're going to kick off this series of three programs with the amazing multidisciplinary artist Amanda Phingbodhipakkiya. She is born and raised in Atlanta to a Thai father and an Indonesian mother, and has a background in classical ballet, and then studied neuroscience at Columbia, and now is just this amazing and really lauded artist whose work you've probably seen around New York City. Her campaign for the New York City Human Rights Commission, this project called I Still Believe in Our City, is everywhere, from subway stations to Times Square to Lincoln Center. And she's been traveling around the country doing these epic murals on the side of buildings. So to start off today's episode, I want to present my quartet performing one of my pieces called Everybody's Waltz. I chose this piece because of something Amanda said in terms of the impact that she wants her art to have. She describes her vision as making the invisible visible, and through her art to challenge assumptions, to build bridges, to promote understanding of people from different walks of life, different cultures, and also to just create what a better world might look like. She talked about taking someone by the hand and bringing them into her world of beautiful colors and vivid palettes. So in that spirit, we offer Everybody's Waltz, and I hope you enjoy. I want to thank John Ellis on saxophone and Rick Rosato on the bass and EJ Strickland on the drums for playing Everybody's Waltz so beautifully. And now we're going to stir things up. We're going to bring Amanda into the mix and see what happens when you join a jazz quartet with a multidisciplinary artist.
So I'm excited to paint with y'all, and I feel like the sounds we'll make here are just really similar to the sound of a paintbrush on a wall, whether I'm painting on brick or stucco. It's just got this ASMR quality, and it sounds just like this. So maybe we can do something with that.
Awesome. So, ignorant question, you never use rollers, it's all brushes.
Well, if there are really large areas, then we'll use rollers, but with the detail, well, we'll use brushes that don't exactly look like this, but
Well, I love that rhythm you were doing. Why don't we just start with that?
Okay, yeah. Well, that was fun.
more, and
Yeah.
you starting with you and EJ, just you and EJ,
Okay.
and then.
Wow. Great ending. Can we take you everywhere we go?
Yes, this is so fun.
Hi, so here we are. I'm so honored to have this brilliant, epic artist, Amanda Phingbodhipakkiya, with us today in the studio. And just, I'm just so impressed with just how articulate and formed your concept. We had a conversation before on the phone. I remember talking to my manager, Kim, just like, I was so impressed with you. You were just really... just fully formed. I mean, in
that's
concept,
really kind. Thank you.
Really in concept, in how you express yourself, and of course your art. And so I guess
You caught me on a good day.
a good year. Well, I want to know how you got into art. Like, how did it all start for you?
That's an interesting question. I mean, as you know, my background is actually in neuroscience.
Yes, and dance.
And it's no surprise that I ended up becoming a multidisciplinary artist because I have so many threads of inspiration ever since I was very little. And, I think it's also a result of how my parents kind of fostered this sense of creativity and freedom. I was never just sort of encouraged to, look at things under the microscope. We sort of like grew plants, and then I remember being, of course, really captivated by the life cycle of the plant, but then also like the texture and the shape of the leaves. So I think I've always just been a little bit sort of a soul in between worlds.
Or hovering above it all, right? Amazing. Wow. So did you always draw, or was that?
I did.
Okay.
I remember when I was little, I would... so sometimes butterflies would die, and I would find, the wings on our porch, and I would look at the wings under the microscope and then sketch them.
Oh my God. Whereas I would have been like, I'm not touching that. That's so cool. Wow.
But yeah, so it's, I was obviously fascinated by the beauty, but then also the engineering of, this tiny, flimsy sort of material can allow an insect to fly. So then it is sort of like this combination of trying to understand the world in different ways. And I think that's sort of what kind of brings us together as, humans. We're all just trying to understand the world, and we have different methodologies and different outputs, but, whether you're a scientist or an artist, you're just trying to kind of hold meaning.
Yes, to interpret, to hold meaning, and then to express that, I think, in community,
Absolutely.
The shared experience.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess when you were your parents kind of opinionated about what they wanted you to study? Because I'm thinking you went to neuroscience, and that's pretty approvable.
Typical immigrant parents, right? Typical Asian immigrant parents, yes, of course. Yeah. The way of stability was certainly expressed as the ideal.
So neuroscience passed muster.
Well, they always hoped I'd become a doctor.
Oh, another.
I mean, in Thailand, doctors are very revered. It's a noble profession, and it's a noble profession anywhere, but specifically in Thailand. And my dad is Thai. He was like, "Oh, my daughter has to be a doctor." And up until a few years ago, he was very much like, you could still go to medical school, which I think is so funny. But I think in a way, it's sort of like, my parents being immigrants, they sacrificed so much to give me opportunities, to give me an education that I think, they sacrificed so that I could have the freedom to express, to raise my voice, and to be visible in a way that perhaps scares them a little bit.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I was thinking today, like, what I wanted to name the series, and I think a working title is Finding Your Voice, Finding a Voice, Asian American Artistry, because I was raised in a, immigrant Asian household that values dutifulness, obedience, conformity, don't cause any waves, don't bring shame onto the family.
Then don't lose face.
Yes, don't lose face. Diolian, that's in Mandarin.
Yep.
And then I studied classical piano with a Russian teacher, which is that school is my way or the highway. So just not having a voice, and it's
very similar to classical ballet in the sense that, well, I mean, as you're describing sort of like my way or the highway, it feels very much the same, where it's sort of like uniformity,
Yes.
sort of conformity is praised.
Yes.
And is sort of like the ideal. You know, you should look a certain way. You should
move a certain way. Positions a certain way.
Exactly. And probably you should play a certain way.
No, you're so right. And then I remember thinking and pushing the thought away because it was so scary to me, just feeling like every time I had an opinion about something, I had to look for an external source of validation of that opinion before I could own it. And that made me really sad. But to find my way into jazz music in college, you know, jazz is an art form that asks, who are you and what do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah,
what do you want to say with this music? And that just put me on a journey. And I just think you have found such a voice with your work and just the power and the strength that you're expressing, and especially with everything that happened during the pandemic with Asian Americans coming to the fore, AAPI, all these new terms. Like, was that something already in the making, or was that something that crystallized for you during those months?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think because our work is about expression, our work is always in the making and has always been in the making, right? Because it is about identity, it is about belonging, it's about all of these experiences that have shaped us as artists, right? So yes, it had always been in the making, but I think, you know, before I released I Still Believe in Our City, I don't think I would have called myself an activist. I think, you know, just growing up in a household that told me, you know, the way was to put your head down and not make waves.
Be invisible almost.
Almost, yeah.
Invisible visibility.
Right. It's sort of like what was safe for immigrant parents was, in a way, to be invisible, to survive.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we are uniquely positioned as the next generation to then consider what it means to thrive and what it means to boldly ask for what we deserve, which is, you know, joy, which is equality, which is
a place
and space and, you know, room for Asian American dreams and hopes and, you know, movements.
So when somebody says, define for me, what is Asian American? Like, how would you, because, you know, I think myself growing up, my parents, they really did not raise us traditionally at all. Very Americanized, as they said. Yeah. So I always felt this disconnect where if I had to say, well, what do I feel like? I feel inside, I would feel like I'm white or Caucasian, really. But outside, I know I don't look that way. And that was always it was a disconnect, and a source of discomfort. And just, I don't know if you ever experienced that, or how was it for you?
Of course. You know, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any Asian child who grew up in America who was not bullied for something about the way they look, what they eat, you know,
our eyes, or
all of it, right? So I think that's why my work is so much about belonging, because if there's anything that I hope folks take away from my work is that, you know, there's a place for you, no matter what you look like, who you love, or, you know, what everyone else is saying. You deserve and can have.
That's so awesome. What is next for you? I know you're traveling around the country.
You know, I like to be open to what's next. And of course, like any other artist, there's about a million irons in the fire.
Yes, I relate.
So, you know, a couple installations here at home, a couple installations elsewhere out in the world. But I think I've really just embraced this idea of creating art that is accessible to a really broad audience, and creating art that is impossible to ignore, because we have so much to say. Why should we say it quietly?
Yeah. And I love the color palette. Is that what you gravitate towards, or just these vivid things that just pop, and there's so much energy and life just brimming out from it?
I'm so glad that you describe it that way. And, you know, these color palettes are actually reflections of the colors that you might see on the streets of Thailand. And
I was going to ask.
of course, you know, growing up in the kitchens of my dad's Thai restaurants, where we would have colorful spices and all of these vibrant smells. And it's just like, I wanted to kind of take someone's hand and just like bring them into the kitchens with me in a way, and kind of experience all that love and community and joy. Because I think if we look at the ways in which we can raise our voices and the ways in which we can resist, one of the simplest ways to do that is to have joy.
Yes.
And to be with others and kind of like create and hold that joy.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much again for being here. And I love that we were going to be able to interact with you. How we did it with the brush strokes, like, you know, evoking the brush strokes of your works against those epic murals that you're doing. And just thank you for sharing your energy and creativity.
Such an honor to work with you, of course, and, you know, the band. I think it's very rare that you can create these spontaneous sort of celebrations of just expression and joy, and I feel like I'm just so lucky to have done that with you all today.
More to come, hopefully. Thank you so much, Amanda.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for the first installment of my digital residency, Reorientation Asian American Artists Out Loud. You know, thinking back over the experience of just interacting with Amanda, I think what is foremost in my mind is just a renewed and deeper appreciation for my parents and their generation, for their strength and perseverance. And even though we might have points of disagreement, you know, their values, how they approach life, as Amanda said, you know, helped them survive and enabled us, gave us a life where we could do things like explore music and think about finding our voice and stuff like that, which is an incredible gift. So thank you to my parents. And we hope you'll stick around for a live Q&A with Amanda and myself afterwards. The link will be in the comments section, and we'll send you out with a montage video of some of Amanda's work, so you can see it accompanied by a composition of mine called Time Loops. Thank you again.